What I'm going to share with you is the highest level of evidence-based science that I was able to get the funds to actually conduct at the Miller School of Medicine, University of Miami Miller School of Medicine in Miami, Florida, in cooperation with the Miami Jewish Health Service. And this is truly incredible because a total of 69% of dementia patients diagnosed as Alzheimer's got benefits for memory and cognition. It is estimated that over 600,000 uh, families in the United States have this challenge, and that there are no pharmaceutical drugs that do any significant benefit. Alzheimer's comes under the heading of dementia, which is the failure of the brain function for memory and cognition, understanding what's going on. And many of these people start out, uh, don't know where their home is or their usual rooms and things that they see on an everyday basis. And it progresses until they have absolutely none of the properties of humanity. Uh, so this also it involves inability to learn, but that is not necessarily slow. Now we see dementia in cerebral palsy children sometime when the hypoxia affects that part of the brain, in fetal alcohol syndrome and Down syndrome that was once called Mongolism, which is also called trisomy 23 gene defect. It's seen in Fragile X boy syndromes, where the X chromosome from inherited from the mother has defects in it, and there is not the second chromosome that matches it. There's only the little small Y chromosome to have any of the programming for memory and cognition. It can also, dementia can happen in strokes and from brain trauma and other maladies that are not age related and are often genetic in origin. Our early experiences were surprising in that in the international dietary supplement company that I was medical director for, it was multi-level marketing and is typical. The individuals got all their family members, and some say the 2 foot rule that anybody within 2 feet, they tell about the benefits of more comprehensive nutrition. And we were told by these baby boomer age distributors that their parents that were in their 70s and 80s were beginning to lose their memory and cognition, and on more comprehensive nutrition built around the active ingredient from aloe vera leaf gel, which is called ace-mannin, that these brain functions improved. The American Association for Retired Persons, the AARP magazine, had a major article in the year 2010 about the challenge to the United States of this Alzheimer's. And at that time, they estimated there were 500,000 families faced with this problem. And now it has increased with our aging population and growth to in excess of 600,000. The World Health Organization projected back in the original AARP magazine over 35 million worldwide, but I have seen some estimates that there may be this many in China alone with the problem of age-related dementia. Now, what I'm going to share with you is this published paper that came out of the uh, clinical study done at the Miami School of Medicine You see here the title, The Effect of Allopolymannose Multinutrient Complex on Cognitive and Immune Functioning in Alzheimer's Patients. And you see the journal references where it was published in the Journal of Alzheimer's. And I might add that this was required by the medical school with its typical pharmaceutical drug orientation that the Institutional Review Board, called an IRB, required a safety study that these elderly patients would not be damaged by more comprehensive nutrition. And the first author there, John E. Lewis, I have to salute this PhD because of his persistence and tenacity that we had 4 or 5 organizations that had Alzheimer's patients, starting with the Veterans Administration, that would not give us the time of day because this was not a potential pharmaceutical drug and was nutrition based. Also, after my name there, Mark Agronin was the director of research for the facility there in Miami that is the largest on the East Coast and had about 20 years experience with potential new drugs for Alzheimer's. And their goal was, according to him, an agent that would slow the progression of dementia, and they had never had any success at this. And you cannot imagine the team of experts at that facility that are listed here, that there was improvement in memory and cognition, which was something they had never seen before. You see the departments that these individuals and where they're related. And at that time, I had the not-for-profit tax status Fisher Institute for Medical Records Research in Grand Prairie, where our office was. Now, this is the abstract at the start of the published paper, and under the red line there, so you can see the purpose of the study was the effect of improved nutrition, particularly with dietary supplements, on cognitive function. And you cannot imagine the degree of cynicism and almost hostility to the point of insult of the idea of using improved nutrition to improve memory and cognition in these advanced as well as moderate and early patients that were losing their ability. And this was designed as a safety study, and we got bonuses because I don't think they would have even allowed us to do this study if they'd have thought we would get the incredible positive results, because it was believed nothing was going to happen. But the things that you see there are primarily flow cytometry and other tests that were done to determine if there was any damage to the liver, the bone marrow, important organ functions to the body. And these CD that you see there time and time again, there, the ratios were normal in this thing, and that CD stands for cell domain. And then they put the exact antibody site that they collect from cells from the bone marrow, that they stayed in the normal zones. But the CD14 monocytes were significantly increased. And this CD14, we have a paper published in National Proceedings of Science that by a Chinese researcher in the Chicago area, that these CD14s have the potential to become plural potential stem cells. And in his research paper, he showed how collecting these CD14 cells and putting them into tissue culture and adding certain cytokines, cell activators, and growth factors that you could cause these undifferentiated cells to differentiate into at least 6 different types of parenchymal cells that included neurons. And so the CD14s in the peripheral blood increased into the millions. And the evidence was from this study that these cells migrated into the brain and replaced dead, poorly functioning neurons, which would explain the increase in memory and cognition. But we collected serum before the patient started and at the exit. And when this was frozen and when the tests for brain-derived neural growth factor became available, it was even diluted with serum of the entire body that this brain-derived neural growth factor increased. So not only were the CD14 cells increased, the stem cells increased, but they were differentiating into neurons that explained. So this is the bonuses we got. Not only was there no evidence of toxicity, but we got to the amazement of our experts that were conducting the study. For the first time, they had never seen improvements in memory and cognition in patients with dementia. And this little study with a small number of patients was required for safety, and it opened the door that if we had the money at the medical school, they would allow a much larger controlled study be conducted to try to come to the conclusion that this was a valid thing. So this is just a pilot study that was for safety and it went for 12 months and there was no evidence of safety, but we got bonuses of improved memory and cognition. There were 46% that on the same tests that they had used for years, they increased memory and cognition, and 23% did not progress. So those that 23% that did not progress was better results than they had ever gotten by their previous research. So this is the abstract and kind of an overview that I'm sharing with you. Now, this study had 34 patients. Their age average from nearly 80 years old, 79.9, and the range of the ages from 60 to 98 years. Of these patients, 13 were widowed, 15 married, 2 never married, 4 divorced. There were 6 males and 28 females because this is typical of Alzheimer's, that a number of females that suffer from this brain function failure is much higher than males. And there were 21 Hispanics, 10 Caucasians, and 3 African American patients. Their education range, and that's important because in the vast studies that have been done on Alzheimer's, the greater the education, it's seemingly the more coping skills that the individuals have to be able to function as their brain function is being reduced. So we had 23 with high school education, 7 with college hours, and 4 with advanced degrees in this pilot study. Now, at this point, there may be some questions asked about the study, and because of the short-term attention span of our population, we kind of block at this point to allow some questions that we hope that will be practical because As a trained physician, I may emphasize things that the lay public, which are far in excess of professionals, would have questions about. Now, in this study, they had 3 scoops a day of the bulk powder of more comprehensive nutrition built around the active ingredient from aloe vera leaf gel, which is acetylated mannose for short, called acemannan. And this formulation was provided at no cost by the Fincher Institute for Medical Research of Grand Prairie, Texas, where I was medical director. Now, as I stated before, 46% of the Alzheimer patients actually improved memory and cognition on the studies that had been used for years for a potential drug, but 23% stabilized and did not progress with their dementia during the year of observation. So that's a total of 69 patients that had a benefit. Now, there is something else that I think is extremely important is that the caretakers on the wards where the hospitalized patients were reported that 100% of the patients responded to the more comprehensive nutrition, that they were happier, more cooperative, and easier to care for. Fact is, the employees expressed excitement over the fact that for decades or years, they had never seen patients improve, but just go down slowly. And here they couldn't wait to get to work each day rather than be in a depressive environment to see the new things that were improving. And it's important to know that the original patients with this malady of decreased brain function was called dementia pugilistica. And that pugilistica is an important word in that they were notorious for fighting, hitting, kicking, shoving, biting the caretakers. And so this was a major change. And it's very common to really just totally wipe out the function of the patients with Haldol to curtail this hostility. Well, this wasn't required in this study because the patients were so much happier and cooperative and easier to take care of. And if there had been nothing but this event in the study, it would be notable because this is such a dehumanizing disease that again, this points out that there was 100% of the patients that the caregivers pointed out that this dietary aloe polymannose multi-nutrient complex had a benefit for brain function, and that this was ruled safe beyond compare. It was effective because it works and supports the engineering and design of life that is coded in the DNA that controls the assembly in cellular synthesis using nutrient molecules to hook them together to make compounds that are bioactive in the chemistry of life. And this is unmatched as an economical modality. Now, the Institutional Review Board that this was done under their auspices approved this clinical study at the Miller School of Medicine, that there was no toxicity or damage done to the elderly patients by more comprehensive nutrition. However, it was estimated that a formal study where you have a group of control patients being getting a substance like a powder that looked just like the interventional powder that contained the micronutrients would cost somewhere between $2 and $3 million. And this is the reason that Big Pharma doesn't like to do these kind of studies because they're so expensive. And this is not generally known by the public. Big Pharma likes to use biomarkers. For example, if does this drug reduce the serum or blood glucose? And if it reduces it, it could be of value in diabetes and in heart attacks and strokes and peripheral vascular disease. If the biomarkers of cholesterol and fatty substances in the serum are reduced, these are biomarkers and they proceed on biomarkers, and in post-marketing monitoring, oftentimes they have to pull, the FDA does, stops the sale and marketing of something because patients have damage to their lungs, to their heart, to their bone marrow, to their liver. And this wasn't detected by biomarkers. Well, of course, in our pilot study, we saw no toxicity whatsoever. Now, efforts are active to try to raise the funds to do this study. And so far, the response is minimal. And that's part of the problem that our population is not oriented toward the power of more comprehensive nutrition, supporting the engineering and design of life that is coded in our DNA that controls cellular synthesis of bioactive molecules that conduct the biochemistry and physiology of life. Now, we had an individual whose wife was a agent for a company that was a major contributor to the Alzheimer's Foundation. And with Dr. John Lewis, the lead author in this paper from the faculty at the Miller School of Medicine, with him, we met with this individual, and he was very adamant that we need to put together an application, and we would just overnight receive the amount of money it would need to proceed with the formal study. Well, Dr. Lewis worked night and day getting this package all together and sent it to the Alzheimer's Foundation. And I have to say, I think we set a record for getting rejection. And over the years, because of so many conditions that more comprehensive nutrition, supporting the engineering and design of life that is in the genes, and you got to understand the genes are sequences of nucleic acids that are programmed for normal health. And so we have this such a broad benefit for deviations for normal or poor health that we have had experiences with many disease foundations. And I have the attitude, I'll share with you, that most of these foundations are public, shall we say, public fundraising scams, because it's the benefit of all these staff peoples for these foundations to have big parties and galas and to live high on the hog from their fundraising operations, and very little of the money goes toward research or individuals that suffer from the diseases. And the worst thing that can happen to these disease foundation is their potential cure, because all the good diseases already have a disease foundation, and this can wreak havoc to them. And so we're hoping to, much like the GoFundMe type public support from this fundraising activity, to raise the money from the public to do this study at the Miller School of Medicine. And I wish I could be more positive about the disease foundations, but I could write a book about the events that have happened and hostility toward our finding that more comprehensive nutrition supports the engineering and design of life in the genes, and the genes are designed for normal health and require a broad supply or inventory of nutrient molecules to be able to make the bioactive compounds that carry out the normal biochemistry of life. And so that's the end of this, and we can possibly have more questions. Thank you.